All right, everybody. I'm Dr. Sherry. Welcome to our webinar on healthy holidays. I'm going to give it just a couple of minutes to get a few more people logged on before we get started, and then we'll flip over to the slides and get going. We're going to be talking about health in the holidays for about the next 45 minutes. Some great ideas. I'm going to branch into a little bit of moving forward also in the new year. Some healthy ideas moving into 2021. It's been a crazy 2020, obviously. And so really it's a good time. Whenever you get kind of turmoil like what's happened in 2020, it's always a great time to regroup, set new goals, and move in the right direction. So give it a couple more seconds and we'll get started. I'm going to get this presentation up and moving. All right, that should do it. All right. Welcome to Healthy Holidays. I'm Dr. Steve Sherry from Maximize Living at Discover Chiropractic in San Jose, California. And tonight we're going to talk about healthy holidays and what that really means. I'm going to show you some interesting stats on health and what happens to us in the holidays. You know, for the most part, the holidays are a happy time and we all get together with family and friends, but sometimes our health can really suffer during these times. So today we're going to talk about that as we move through this. Let me skip into our first slide. I see some of you out there. So one thing about the holidays is when they get going, it is really about just eating a lot of food. And unfortunately, a lot of that food in our tradition has become very unhealthy. In fact, you know, we always talk about it being the most joyous time of the year, and that's for most people. Not everyone has such a great holiday experiences a lot, but most of us are with family and friends, and we celebrate with food. There's a good reason we do this, by the way, because it turns out that one of the really de-stressing things that human beings or animals can do is the act of eating. For instance, if you're say an antelope and you've been chased by something that wants to kill you, when you get away, you'll notice they start eating because it's actually very relaxing for us to eat, because the theory is if you're eating, nothing's trying to eat you. So our body tends to move into a more relaxed, more healthy mindset, which is why we love having people for lunch. We love having people over for dinner. It's a good, relaxing time for us to bond with people. We're not under a lot of stress. Typically, the holidays, though, become a different scenario. So I want to talk about some interesting stats. When we look at the holidays, take a look at that. The average person in America eats over 6,000 calories on Christmas Day. Now, sometimes you talk calories, if you don't really look at the numbers, it's hard to grasp what 6,000 calories really means. Well, consider this. On average, most people should eat somewhere around 2,000 calories, a little more, a little less per day. So 6,000 calories is about 3 times the calorie intake that most Americans should be eating in the day. And so take a look at this slide, and you'll notice, you know, if you wake up in the morning and have that pancake breakfast with the eggnog and calories, look at that. That's 1,100 calories right there. That's over half of the calories pretty much that most of us are required for the day, and you've already had them in the morning. You get a midday snack, you're looking at 700 calories, give or take there. Pre-dinner appetizer, you know, everyone puts those snacks out on the table. We all love that. They're usually high in sugar. That's almost another 1,000 calories. And then we get to the big show, the big dinner, and all of a sudden we're looking at calories in the 1,500 to 1,800 calories. And it really starts adding up. And of course, everybody says it wouldn't be Christmas without what after dinner? Dessert. And here comes that pumpkin pie, the pecan pie. We start eating that, and of course, it's not good without all the whipped cream. You start adding these things up, and we're over 6,000 calories for the day. Now, why is that important to us? Let me show you something. Take a look at what the exercise is required to burn 6,000 calories. Take a look at that. If you run 8 minutes, you burn only about 100 calories. If you walk for about 12 minutes, you burn off about 70 calories. Just look at that chart on the left up there. Look at how much those calories take to burn off. At the very bottom part, you'll see one serving of Christmas pudding, 370 calories. That would take a 32-minute run to burn off those calories. So we've known for a long time the answer is you can't outrun the fork, basically. Which it brings up the question, and some people will start talking after this, and we'll talk about weight loss and things. But in the new year, you want to start thinking about getting in shape and losing weight. And the number one rule that I love to tell people is the 80-20 rule. And what that means is weight loss and getting in shape is 20% exercise, 80% diet. Again, you can't outrun that fork. You consume so many products into your body with that many calories, you just literally cannot exercise your way out of it. I heard a lecture one time where a physiologist was talking about fast food restaurants. And he said, if you go to McDonald's and you were to eat there, you consume so many calories that you literally would have to run the rest of the day until lunch to burn off those calories to have lunch at McDonald's again. And if you did that, you'd have so many calories, you'd have to run again all the way until dinner time. So I want you to keep that in mind. We have to start looking at calories and what that means to the body, especially on Christmas. Years ago, I started thinking of the holidays not so much as a really fun, crazy time to eat all I want, but more of a challenge on my health habits to see if I could get past the test. Can I get through Thanksgiving and Christmas having a good time, but eating limited amounts and not just allowing myself to just break loose and have everything I want? Now, let's talk about sugar for a second, because sugar is a huge part. And what I want you to see is take a look at the sugar consumption on that chart, the U.S. sugar consumption since 1822. This one goes up to 2005. And you can imagine 2020, the sugar consumption is even higher. Look at the increase in pounds of sugar per year in America. It's just going up and up and up. Our bodies love carbohydrates, and the sugar is a carbohydrate. It's a simple sugar. Our bodies are built to design to crave those simple sugars. Thousands of years ago, we didn't have access to it like we do now. Now it's everywhere. And if you think we can have an addiction to it, whenever you think of that, you think, could we be addicted to sugar? Just look around at what we eat. The answer is we definitely get addicted to sugar. You take a look, unfortunately, in America, cancer is a big problem. We've discovered that sugar feeds cancer cells at a pretty high rate. So decreasing the sugar is really important. And when you look around at the foods that most of us are going to be eating in the next few weeks, you're going to see an enormous amount of high sugar. One of the interesting things about sugar in our society and our meals, whenever we celebrate, you'll notice it's always sugar. Similar with alcohol, by the way. In our culture, when you really think of it, alcohol is okay for everything in our society, isn't it? If you have a bad day, you should probably have a drink. If you had a great day, you certainly should celebrate and have a drink, shouldn't you? If it's your birthday, have a drink. If it's Friday night, it's okay to have a drink. If it's Saturday night, it's party night, have a drink. And what about Sunday afternoon at the park? You can have a drink. If you look at our culture is designed that alcohol can be consumed at any time. And it's actually the same as sugar. Our sugar addictions are really out of control, and we pay a huge health price for having that much simple sugar in our diets. So I want you to watch as you go through the next couple of days. Watch that sugar and what you're eating and see how much you're taking in. Now, I want to show something really quick. The problem with sugar is it does this thing called glycation. What that means is sugar molecules go into our body and they bind to proteins. What does that mean? Well, most of our body is made of proteins in different positions, and a sugar molecule will come in, grab onto the protein molecule, and basically render it useless. In fact, most aging experts realize that the process of glycation is like a sugar coming in and grabbing onto a protein and toasting it like a piece of toast. Once the sugar is attached to a protein in your body, the sugar can never be untoasted. And they think that's an absolutely number one problem with diabetes and with aging. It breaks down the proteins in your skin and within your body because every time that sugar molecule grabs onto a protein molecule, it renders that protein useless. The number one sugar for glycation in your body is fructose or fruit sugar. Now, does that mean you shouldn't eat fruit? Absolutely not. The difference between eating fruit with a lot of fiber in it is a world different than drinking fruit juice, which is why if you look into it, you'll find out the orange juices and the apple juices are actually almost as bad as some of the sodas that people are drinking now. So I want you to keep track. Watch those juices and that high sugar intake. That glycation process, that toasting of proteins by the sugars getting into your body and ruining those cells are making us age faster, they're giving us cancer, and they're breaking us down at a high rate that we don't need. Again, during the next couple of days, you just stand out. Look at people's eating habits in the Christmas environment and the New Year's environment, and look at the foods that people are consuming. You'll see high amounts of sugar. So be very careful out there when you look at that. Now, during the holidays, here's another startling thing. People gain almost 500% more weight per week during the holidays. Again, it's the enormous amount of calories and the bad calories, the sugar calories that are putting in there, which are what we call empty calories. What is an empty calorie? Well, an empty calorie is things like high sugar, which doesn't really have any value in your body. You know, if you eat a piece of broccoli, there's calories in there. Your body will use that calorie for energy, but it comes with all the other cofactors and the vitamins and the minerals, all the fiber that you need in there. It comes prepackaged in there. You get a bowl of M&Ms, those are just empty calories. That's just sugar going in, and it doesn't have anything of value to your body. It's just adding useless, empty calories. Which brings up another topic I want to share with you, and that is the difference between what we call living food and dead food. Interesting study they did with college kids. They put these college kids in front of a movie, and they gave them a small bowl of M&Ms. And during the movie, what they discovered is every single college student would sit there and eat the entire bowl of M&Ms. The researchers thought, well, that's interesting. I wonder if we give them a bigger bowl. So they brought in some other kids and had them watch movies and gave them a medium-sized bowl of M&Ms. They weren't surprised to find out that the majority of those college kids ate the entire medium-sized bowl of M&Ms while they were watching the movie. The researchers thought, well, let's try it again. They brought them in and gave them a gigantic bowl of M&Ms. And you guessed it, those college kids sat there and ate the entire bowl of M&Ms. They couldn't give them a big enough bowl. The majority of them would continuously eat in what we call mindless eating. There's no fulfillment of eating these empty calories, these candies, these high sugars. The researchers thought that was so interesting that they brought kids in this time and they gave them a big bowl of apples, a big bowl of oranges, a big bowl of carrots and broccoli. And you know what they found. They would eat for a while and then they filled up and they would stop. You know, the difference between what we call a living food. A living foods, they're the ones that we consume raw, but they're the ones in a condition as close as possible to their original vibrant living state. We're talking fresh fruits, we're talking vegetables, maybe they're lightly cooked. These have live enzymes, antioxidants, and all the other nutrients that are in there that are prepackaged for our body. When you eat live foods, they actually fill us up. When you eat dead foods, these are things that are reconstituted, refined, extremely long shelf life, for instance. You know, one of the things you can look at when you go to the grocery stores, we always talk about like shopping in the ends, at least we used to. And at the ends of the grocery store where the fruits and vegetables are, those type. In the middle is all the box things, the processed, the synthetic, the things that are hormone laced. We don't want those in our body. We want to eat good, healthy, living, organic foods and stay away from the empty calories and the mindless eating that those produce. Here's a big one, and I know, if you look at our website, you're going to see I've done quite a few of these workshops on stress. In the office, we do a lot of them. Hopefully, you guys have come to these. Stress. Stress in the holidays is extremely high. You know, it's interesting because really the holidays are supposed to be this amazing time. We're all having a good time. But we find out one of the biggest stressors for most of us are other people in our lives. A lot of our families are really stressful to be around. The stress of getting everything accomplished, the stress of making the meal, the cleaning the meal, having everything look perfect, really weighs heavy on our physiology. How does stress affect us? Well, that question is a big question that takes a long time to dive into, but let me just give you a quick rule. If you want to know how anything in the body responds to stress, just ask yourself, how would that body part react if a tiger was attacking me? Let me give you a point. If a tiger was attacking me, would my body spend energy and blood flow and nervous energy to my stomach to digest food that I may or may have just ate? And the answer is no. My body doesn't want to waste any blood flow or any energy digesting food if I'm running for my life. The theory is if he eats me, he can digest the muffin that I just ate. So the body won't do that. What about heart rate and blood pressure? It's all going to go up under stress because I need to run or fight for my life. What about sex drive? Does sex drive go up when you're being chased by a tiger? Absolutely not. Chronic stress will drive our sex drive. It changes our hormones. It drives those things down. That's not baby making time if you're being chased by a tiger, right? So whenever you think of stress, just realize, what would your body do if you're chased by a tiger? Well, digestion is definitely going down, but it also has an interesting effect on our weight gain. Long-term chronic levels of stress actually add weight to our internal organ structures in the middle of our belly. We get belly fat due to high levels of stress. What a wicked mix, right? You're at a family function. There's a lot of bad food, dead food that's not good for us with a lot of sugar, cancer causing. We add a little dose of stress in there and you start eating. Now, why are you eating the bad food? Well, it's what's there. It also, eating, your body's trying to drive you out of stress. Remember I said eating is a de-stressing event. The food you have there is high sugar. You're addicted to it. You want that relief in your brain. So you're driven to it to get the relief from the stress with the exact wrong foods. It's almost like someone evil planned this whole strategy out to go after us in the holidays. So be sure to take time to really take a deep breath before you go in and take a look at those foods. Another interesting stat, 38% of people are more stressed during the holidays. You know that during the holidays, heart attacks go up? It's called holiday heart syndrome. It's when there's this acute stress happens and people have more heart attacks. Again, under stress, the blood pressure goes up, heart rate goes up, the arteries close down, boom, heart attacks throw right there. Just a sample of how stress affects us in the holidays. Tips to keep the holidays healthy. Let's talk about some things that are really important that we can do to fight against some of these high stress things that happen to us. First one is exercise. Listen, if you came to me and said, what's the number one thing I can do to be healthy? I would say move, and then move. Those would be the top three. The more we move, we are beautifully designed motion machines. As a chiropractor, there's nothing that needs to move more than our spines. They're designed for motion. They self-lubricate. They self-heal as long as they move. The weak link, as we've talked, the subluxation happens. The spine gets locked up and doesn't move. That's our job, is to fix that. I remove that subluxation from your spine, but you still have to go move the spine. What's interesting about exercise is when you move, the nervous system rewards you. We get rewarded for motion and we get punished for a lack of motion. When you exercise, the nervous system sends electrical signals to your brain and actually calms us down. It increases oxygen into our cells, and our bodies get rewarded by increased health. Sitting on the couch, we get punished. The nervous system flattens down. The body doesn't increase oxygen to the structures. The brain is really interesting. The brain is either building health or breaking down. If you're sitting around and you're immobile day after day after day, the brain actually thinks, oh, we're breaking down, we must be dying. It literally will start shutting down structures in the body. If you're out every day moving and exercise, the body's in building mode. It believes it's getting healthier, and things begin to change. Your brain gets smarter, your organs get more healthy, the muscles get stronger. We clearly are designed to move, not to sit around and not. Now, let's get creative with exercise. Let's talk about this. This time of year, the number one thing, and health clubs will tell you this, people are out all over the place deciding that they're going to get healthy in 2021. I would imagine it might be bigger this year, depending on how this year plays out. After last year, a lot of people have been sitting at home. I think a lot of people are itching to get out and try to get healthy. So we're all going to be setting goals. We're all going to have habits. I think what I'm about to tell you might be the most important thing I have for you tonight. And that is, how do you set healthy habits? Well, I'll tell you this. My experience with coaching at different levels of athletes and helping people be healthy, the number one thing is people go out way too fast. I want to lose weight, and they decide they're going to go out today and run a 10K, and they're going to only eat 5 apples all day. The problem with that is that's a habit that will not be formed. Your brain will not accept a habit if it's really painful and hard to do. Let me give you an example. Get up in the morning, tomorrow at about 4:30 or 5, and drive around the neighborhood. And you know what you'll find? You'll see some people out running, and you're going to drive by them and say, those are crazy people. But I'm going to tell you this, they're not crazy. They're actually addicted to exercise. Because my experience is when somebody wants to start exercising, they don't start by getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. At least they don't keep doing it. They might try it for a morning or two until their brain goes, well, that was a fun experience. Let's not do that ever again. You see, the people that you see running on them every morning at 4:30 or 5 in the morning are the people who have done exercise for so long that they couldn't do it in the afternoon anymore because of their schedule, and they started going to the morning because they were so addicted to it, they had to do that. If you're addicted to a drug and you can't do it any time but 5 in the morning, you would get up and do it at 5 in the morning. You're not going to start these exercise habits if you're not exercising by exercising in the morning. I would discourage that. I think what you should do is start looking for where's the easiest time to start exercising and exercising very easily. You are not going to create a habit if it's really hard. I would recommend that you start your exercise very simple. What does that mean? It could mean as short as a 5-minute walk. You do it every evening for 5 minutes. The idea is that when you do your walk, you come back and I want your brain to say, you know what? That was pretty good. I could do that again. I'll do that again tomorrow. If you go out and run a 10K, you're going to feel good about it, but the deep inside brain's going to go, well, that was fun, but there's no way I'm doing that again. And then you wake up the next morning and you're sore, your brain's going to say, I knew I shouldn't have done that. I'm definitely not doing that again. You have to make it a pleasurable experience. Go for a short walk, 5 minutes, pat yourself on the back, say that was great. Your brain will have no idea. Your brain will be so confused. It'll be like, wait, what? The next day, your brain's not going to put up a fight for that. Your brain will say, yeah, I'll do that again. It wasn't that bad. The key for most of us when we're starting to look to get healthy is to realize that the first step is not to lose weight. The first step is not to get in crazy good shape. The first step is to create the habit. And that takes at least 25, 35 days of repeating that activity over and over and over and making it good. Your goal is to do those exercise, eat that healthy diet, and make it so your body doesn't get sore and make it so it's fun so that your body will redo that habit over and over and over. Super important to get that habit down. How do we minimize toxins? You know, toxins are becoming a bigger problem. 25 years ago when we got out of chiropractic college, we talked about toxins, but boy, they're everywhere now, all over the place. And I just wanted to throw one in there. We don't have a lot of time to dive into this, but you know, in Christmas time, you hear a lot of candles. And I thought I'd throw this up and show you that, you know, there are a lot of harmful chemicals in candles and air fresheners specifically. And this time of year, you know, you see a lot of people spraying these things into the air. Years ago, I looked into it in pretty in depth, looked at a lot of interesting studies, heard some different lectures about it. And really, we should not be inhaling these things. These candles have a lot of chemicals in them that come up. And you can see the volatile organic compounds, the formaldehydes are in these sprays. You'll see artificial fragrances. We really don't, you know, you look back, I had a conversation with someone a long time ago and they said, well, candles, you know, we've done candles forever. And I said, well, yeah, if you burn like a bee wax candle, that's different than some of these mass produced candles where they're using a lot of the chemicals and, you know, they burn them, they go right into the air. So really take a look about the toxins that are in your world during these holidays. And if anything, if this is the first time you're hearing us talk about toxins, the number one thing that we want you to do is go online. You can look for the Dirty Dozen. There's a bunch of these websites that'll show you the most toxic things in the house, and they'll give you a list. You can just go through your house and start flipping over the labels on some of your cleansers, and almost everyone who we recommend to do that will come back and say they were just blown away by the amount of toxins that are right there in that house that we live in. So I'd encourage you, take a look at some toxins in the house just for fun and see how that looks. Core chiropractic, super important. This time of year, the one thing we do see is we have people that miss appointments because they put other things in front of getting adjusted. We really would recommend we maintain those regular adjustments. The best way to think of adjustment is how you brush your teeth. When you think of like, well, the holidays are coming, I think I'm not going to brush my teeth for a few weeks. Nobody would say that, right? Like nobody would do that. The same with your spine. We want to stay on top of that. We want to maintain regular adjustments. Again, we want to maintain our habits. You know, earlier I had mentioned one of the things I've learned about the holidays is to take them on as a challenge. And what I mean by that is how do I get through this really interesting time of the year where there's a lot going on and shopping and family events and I'm being challenged by all these foods. How do I get through and stay as steady as I can? How do I maintain my exercise routine that I do, whether that's a hour swim or a 30-minute run, or whether it's a weightlifting training that you do, 4 or 5 times a week or 3 times a week or 2 times. How do you make it through? One of the things I've learned is to take it on as a challenge. I don't just think of it as a bad thing. I think, okay, this is a really good opportunity. It's darker. It's colder. I've got a bazillion other things to do. How dedicated am I to my health? How dedicated am I to my habit? And you're going to find out during the winter, that's a big challenge. I take it on as a challenge. Can I get through the holidays and eat properly and keep my exercise routine going? Now, if you don't, if you haven't been eating right, if you haven't got a healthy habit, then here's a great thing. Christmas time is the best time to try a habit, because if you can establish it now, the weather will start changing in the next few months. We start warming up into spring. If you can get that habit through the winter, it's going to push you right through the summer and all the way through to the fall, because that habit now is a hard thing to form. That's why I want you to start kind of slow. I had an interesting story that I came across. I was watching a show not too long ago, and there was a vegan bodybuilder. This guy was just ripped. And the interviewer was asking him about his diet, like what does he eat? And so he was explaining his diet and how strict he was. And the interviewer said, wow, you are really dedicated to your diet. And he looked at him and he said, so you must never cheat on your diet. I thought the same thing. But there's no way this guy cheats. Like, he is just shredded, ripped, in great shape. His answer was really interesting. He looked at him and he said, oh, no, I cheat. I just don't get ambushed. The reporter said, what do you mean ambushed? He said, I pick and choose when I cheat on my diet. He went on to tell the story. He said, one thing I do is if I know I'm going to, say, a birthday party on Saturday and I know there's going to be some pie or cake there, he goes, I will log that into my head and say, okay, so on Saturday at the party, I'll allow myself to have some cake. I'll deviate from my diet on Saturday. I thought, wow, that's a level of discipline that a lot of people don't have, although we all would benefit if we did have it. He then went on to say, I don't get ambushed. And what he meant by that is, he goes, I don't run into friends who we go into, say, a restaurant and they all start having cake or pie and I give in and have a piece. He goes, I never allow myself to be ambushed. That's the level of a dedication to habit that really serves people well. So I would encourage you, as you start looking at your habits during the holiday, first step, get through the holidays as clean as you can, eating as clean as you possibly can. And as you set up new health habits, think of that and realize I'm going to set up easy habits that are easily achievable, that have a growth potential, and I'm really going to stick to them. I'm in charge. You know, that's a big question when you look at habits. Who's in charge? I always tell people when I'm working with them, you got to ask, who's in charge? You know, are your addictions to, say, cheese and dairy, because that's an addictive food because of some of the morphine derivatives that we found in them? Are you addicted to sugar? Most Americans are. And you'll find yourself driven towards your addictions no matter how. You got to find out, are you in charge or are your addictions in charge? That's the question I want you to really ask. Okay, so don't let the holidays distract you. Be as consistent as you can. Stay strong through the holidays, and it'll launch us into the new year. Now, another thing that gets dropped a lot is the home care. Most of you are patients who are listening, and you know the home care. We've given you traction. We've given you wobble pads to work with. We've given you isometric exercises. I really want you to stay focused, because one thing that you'll see happen during this time is you'll stop doing one of your habits, and you'll realize you quickly create the negative habit, which is, I didn't do my exercises today, and I'm not going to do them tomorrow. And next thing you know, and you all know this, next thing you know, a week has gone by, 2 weeks, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, and you haven't done your home care. You will lose it that quickly. So really redouble the efforts. Here's a tip. During the time when you're really busy, it's just as valuable if you can sit down, and even if you do half of the reps, you still would get credit for it. It's super important. You know, if you sit down, I'm in a hurry, I can't do it, I would still encourage you, get out the wobble pad and do a set of 10. Get on the traction unit, do a set of 10. Do something, but make your brain realize that A, you're addicted to the habit, just like that runner in the morning. Just like that runner who gets up at 5 in the morning and goes running, even though it's cold and rainy. Just like that, teach your brain, hey, I'm addicted to this and I'm going to do it. I'm committed to the habit and I'm not going to give it up. I might do a little bit less of the exercises, but I'm still going to do them, right? So make sure we stay consistent with those exercises that we're doing. Mindset. This is a big one, and this is, again, a whole series of workshops that we've done on this. You can dial in on our mindset workshops where we talk about the psychology of this. We talk about much more in depth on stress and how it affects our body. But the mindset is, during the holidays, we just got to find time. During the winter, we got to find some time. We got to make sure that we're sleeping right. You know, they always talk about 8 hours. There's a professor over at the University of Berkeley, Matthew Walker. He wrote a really good book called Why We Sleep. Really great book. If you got time, find that book, Why We Sleep, and have a read. He talks a lot about what happens to your brain and your brain chemistry with their research. And what they're finding is the last 2 hours of the 8 hours. And a side note, you know what he said about 8 hours that I found interesting? The 8 hours isn't like a random recommendation. What they found out is our brain waves cycle, and it takes about 8 hours for our brain to run through the whole cycle. Think of your brain as like a dishwasher, and you turn it on. It has to go through the wet cycle, the soap cycle, the rinse cycle, and all of that. And it takes it a certain amount of time. The human brain does the exact same thing when we sleep, and that cycle takes about 8 hours. He makes a point to saying 8 hours isn't just some random recommendation. It's the minimum. They're not saying, oh, you need 8. They're saying you need minimum of 8 so that your brain can go through the cycle. Here's the thing I got out of Matthew Walker that really stunned me. When you look at the way our brains work, it turns out the last 2 hours of that 8-hour cycle is the majority of what creates health for us. And he makes reference to that. He says, people will say, well, I get 6 or 7, so I'm only missing 1 or 2. It's not a big deal. The problem is the last 2 hours of that cycle are the most important part of sleep. So if you're cutting it short at 6 or 7 hours at night, you're robbing yourself of health. I'll tell you one study that I found interesting. They took rats, and they discovered that if you don't feed a rat dies in about 22 days without food. They also took rats and they robbed them of sleep, so they wouldn't be able to sleep. And the rats die in about 19 to 20 days. Think about that. If you take a mammal and you take away food, which we all know is important for life, and you take away sleep, the mammal will die without the sleep faster than without the food. In other words, sleep is more important to us than food, which we all know is important. And we're learning more about sleep all the time, but I would encourage you, when your mindset, when you're taking care of your brain and how it works, sleep is really creeping up and becoming one of the most important things. Sleep and exercise are the things that really work your brain. The exercise stimulates nerves that stimulate your brain to grow. Sleep allows the brain time to cycle through, clean itself up like a computer, put in memories and educated things, puts them in the right place, and gets ready for the next day. So during the holidays, mindset, we definitely need our 8 hours of sleep. Make sure we get those. If you're having trouble sleeping, grab one of us in the office. I got a lot of tips on how to increase sleep, things you can do at home that makes a big difference with room temperature and lighting and all these great things. Real side note on this one real fast. Waking up to a light alarm, one of the greatest things that I discovered years ago. Light alarms, what are they? They're alarms that wake you up with a light that gradually comes on. Turns out we've been on this planet for a long time. We're very used to the sun rising and going down. So our brain will realize when the sun begins to come up gradually, it begins to wake us up. The pineal gland realizes light comes in, your brain starts gearing up. It's not natural for us to wake up to. It's very shocking. In fact, if you go back thousands of years ago, the only time human beings woke up to that is if an animal was charging in to attack you. We didn't wake up startled like that. It's really bad for our health. A light alarm allows you to set an alarm, and it comes on, and it might come on gradually over a 30-minute period or whatever you set it for. My experience is if I wanted to get up at 6, I set the alarm to start at 5:30, and I would just pleasantly wake up somewhere between 5:50 or 5:45 because the light has just been gradually coming on in the room. It's a much more peaceful, much more neurologically healthy way to wake up, and that's the way we were on this planet. Now, I don't have a problem falling asleep at all, but if you do have a hard time, those lights have what they call a sunset mode. Same idea. You get into the room, that light's on full bright. You can set it to start slowly tapering down, and that'll put your brain to sleep. So a light alarm, you can look into them. If you can't find them, when you guys come in, grab me, and I'll give you the clues, and I'll show you the one that I have and the ones that I think are really good. A planner is another good recommendation, especially in the holidays. If you're just running off the cuff and you don't know what's happening, getting your thoughts down really helps our brains. Our brains are very analytical. They like to be organized. If you have that planner so you know what's coming on every day, some people call it a war plan. You just have an idea of what's happening. It really releases our brains so that they can function more properly and they're not as stressed out during this time. Okay, nutrition. Nutrition is a big one. I talked a little about in the beginning. You want to make sure that each holiday is a day, not a month. Now, I know some of you out there say, you say it's not my birthday, it's my birthday month. That's a funny joke. Everyone laughs at that one. But really, you want the holiday, you know, like that vegan bodybuilder I said, we know Christmas is going to be a day you're going to be challenged. I get it. So you're going to reach down and say, I'm going to do the best I can to get through this holiday, eat as healthy as I can. Sure, I'm going to have maybe a snack or two, but you want to keep it to just the day. I mean, how many of us have been in office party after office party? It's snacks everywhere. Next thing you know, you've been eating unhealthy for 2 weeks. 3 weeks, you know, there's Thanksgiving and then all the treats come through. Next thing you know, you've eaten unhealthy for a month. That's why so many people gain so much weight. You know, I began by saying people eat 6,000 calories on Christmas, right? That doesn't count in any of the bad food people have been eating for 3 or 4 weeks before, after Thanksgiving. I mean, it all starts at Halloween, right? All the way through, you can't let that happen. Remember, I was sharing with you how to start habits. And if you really want to start an unhealthy eating habit, what you could do is start with maybe 3 or 4 holidays back to back. And you start with one that's real heavy in sugar, A lot of candy. That'd be Halloween. Make that into a bunch of parties where you're drinking alcohol and having sugar in there and stuff. And then build them up so that there's this big high pressure meal that everyone's going to come to. And oh yeah, make sure you have a lot of pies and cake. And then really bring them home with Christmas at the end. And by the way, what will happen is you'll create, because notice that's a little over 30 days, isn't it? That's created that habit of eating bad. And that habit can just push right through the rest of the year. So remember, bad habits and good habits. You can easily create a ton of bad habits because they're easy to form. So don't turn Christmas Day into Christmas year. Making healthy food swaps. There's a lot of good information out there, but there's a lot of really good things that you can change during the holidays. Mashed potatoes, you can do mashed cauliflower. I know at Whole Foods they've got all this. You grind up cauliflower. I've had this many times. I don't even know if I could tell the difference, to be honest with you. Stuffing, you can do grain-free stuffing, you'll notice. Pumpkin spice lattes, you can use black coffee and stuff. Apple pie, you do baked apples. They're online. You can find an enormous amount of options, things you can switch over to better, a lot more healthy options out there that you can switch over to. You just got to look into this. Again, if you have questions, ask us when you come in. But really, I want you to sit down this year and make it through these holidays thinking. Don't just let it run on you. Don't just go into it. Think of that vegan bodybuilder who said, I only cheat on my diet when I decide to cheat on my diet. Don't just be the leaf blowing in the wind. Don't be the person who just goes to the Christmas dinner and eats just whatever's put in front of them. I'm challenging you guys tonight to start thinking who's making these decisions. You know, one of the challenges I give a lot of patients is the 5-day raw diet. And that's where you eat raw food only for 5 days. And the reason I do that is to find out what foods they're addicted to. And can they actually hold the line? It's a great chance to figure out who's in charge. And you'll find out really quick if you're making the food choices or if your addictions to food are making those choices. So make sure this holiday time that you're really just settling in and looking at these ideas and figuring out. Now, before I get done, a couple of things we have in the office, but I think we should all be putting in when we talk about health. The daily essential boxes that we have, I use the men's all the time. There's the Max Greens. We have a whole line of very healthy supplements in our office. We have the proteins. We have the plant protein. We got the Pure Path protein and the grass-fed whey proteins that are in our office. We're all here on the wall. Almost everyone on our staff use these. You'll see this other line over here with our proteins and our bars, which are delicious. So be sure to ask if you're in the office if you're not taking those. Currently, by the way, our vitamin D is flying off the charts because of this COVID thing. We know that vitamin D has a huge part in helping us stay healthy and avoid the COVID. So vitamin D3 we have up with probiotics, which is great. If you don't know what probiotics are, by the way, go back to our site and take a look on our YouTube channel. I did a microbiome talk probably about 4 months ago where we talked about the bacteria in our gut lining and how important those probiotics are, which are the bacteria that line our stomach, how important they are for our nervous system, for our stress, how our body functions. Really good workshop talk. I think you should go back and watch if you're unsure about that information. Now, one more thing before we're done. Make sure you get connected in this office. We offer a ton of resources in our office. And a lot of times I scratch my head and go, why aren't everyone tied into this stuff? So I got some news to tell you. Coming up, we have a whole bunch of events happening. Okay. The first one, if you have not been to Better Results Faster class, it's the first class that I think everyone should take. Our Better Results Faster class right now is being done by Dr. Doss. The idea behind that class is to tie you in. If you've read the book, we go into the five essentials, and we talk more about how to get more out of this office. Really important. It's like the owner's manual, basically, for our office. It's about a 30 to 45-minute talk that Dr. Doss does. He does them about every 2 to 4 weeks. I think we're once a month right now, but we're getting up to every 2 weeks. Make sure you sign up for a Better Results Faster class. The next one's going to be January 7th after New Year's. If you haven't been, or I'll tell you what, even if you have been there, I know I've seen people come 2 or 3, 4 times to them because they're a little bit different every time. Make sure you get into that. It's a huge class that we need to have done. Also coming up in January, near the end of January, we'll have our first makeover in the 2021 year. We don't have a title for it yet, but keep an eye open for that. You'll start to see it advertised in our office. The makeover is a longer process. Usually all 3 doctors will be there. We all 3 will play a part in that. And we'll talk about health. I really want you to dive into this office and get all the advantages out. You know, even if you say, well, I've got it. it's constantly the reminders. The people who are the most successful in our office, the most successful in their health, are the ones that are the most connected. And they're in asking questions, and they're writing notes, and they're checking in on classes. And I talked to a patient the other day. She says, one of the things I always do is I try to make sure I get to at least 2 classes every year. Now, I'd love to have her at more, but her goal is I just want to make sure I make 2. She goes, it keeps me in touch, and it always gives me really good information, and it helps me change my life and stay on track. So Better Results Faster is coming up on the 7th of January. Sign up when you're in. The makeover is coming in the end of January, so keep that in mind. Another thing that's coming out, for those of you that signed up for the class, there's an email going to be sent out. Alyssa told me that she will be sending that email out tomorrow at 7 a.m. And in that, there's a link for an ebook. It does cost, I think, about $9. And we have it printed out in the office. You want to see it. It is a book that is entitled, oh, it's gone. Where'd it go? Where did I write it? Hang on, I get the name. There it goes. It's a cookbook, basically.
For the holidays.
Oh, what is it? Holiday recipes? Oh my gosh, I can't think of the name. They're going to kill me. But there's a book. It's all about holiday recipes. It's written by a Maximized Living doctor. And she put in a lot of recipes and kind of gives you options. We have them. We have one printed out you can look at here if you want, but there will be a link included on the email going out so that you can log in and take a look. I love the ideas. Healthy recipes are great. I know we use the Forks Over Knife site a ton this time of year. There's a lot of great websites in there. Recipes in there. And again, look for one of the fun challenges that I find is I take some of the old recipes that I grew up with that I love, and how do you modify and make them healthier? And that's a really fun challenge to do in the holidays. How do you make them healthier? One thing I did is on that sugar idea is I had years ago when my kids were really young, I looked at a few of the recipes and realized, wow, there's a lot of sugar in that recipe. And I would cut the sugar down, maybe in half, and I found out it didn't really matter that much. They were still really good and the kids really liked it. I would drop the sugar down dramatically, and there wasn't a huge effect that I thought. The recipe book is called "'Tis the Season to Be Healthy." I just remembered it. Also, it was just handed to me. So take a look. That link will be on that email. And when you come in, make sure you sign up for the classes. One more thing I want to tell you. Whenever I do a workshop like this, patients will come in after and say, hey, I watched the workshop and I knew my friend or my relative or my child or my spouse, they're the ones that really needed that information. They're the ones that really wanted in. When I got out of chiropractic school, you get out of chiropractic school and you think, I want to change the world. I want to help as many people as I can live healthy, natural lives, quality life. And the first thing you learn when you're out, and you learn it quick, you can't do it alone. We need help. We need you guys to share this information with your friends and your family. There's a lot of people out there dying. They have chronic diseases. They don't need to suffer and do this. They need longer quality lives. And this information can get out to them. So if there's people that you thought of, your good friend, your family member who really should have heard this information, or who really needs to get into this office and connect and dial into this information, there's an offer that we're putting in the email. And basically it's a new patient exam with the x-rays for only $60. It's normally about $120. We've cut it in about half for you. In the next couple of weeks, up until January 4th, if you call in or if your referred friend calls in, all they have to do is mention this workshop and say healthy for the holidays. That's the code word, healthy for the holidays, and they'll get that special new patient appointment. Really important. Share the information. One of the things I want you to think of is not everyone's ready to get healthy, but everyone's ready to hear the information. They should at least have an opportunity to hear. Listen, if someone says you invite them to come in and they don't come in, that's on them. But if we don't at least mention to them that it's an option, that's on us. So I would encourage you to share with your friends. The email will go out tomorrow, and have a look. If you think that cookbook is interesting, you can have a look when you're in the office, when you come up, all right? Otherwise, I loved doing these workshops. I hope you guys had a good time. Ask me questions as you come in. Last thing I want to close with, really focus. This is a really good time to challenge yourself. Can you get through this rough diet time healthy? In fact, can you get through this holiday season healthier with better health habits than what you came in? That's the challenge I want to challenge you tonight with. Getting through eating healthier and creating a better health habit, whether that's exercise or a diet change. That's your goal through the holidays. Have a great holiday season, guys, and I'll see you at the office.